Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this last session today. The traditional industry panel. We have invited some prominent associated members of Terena from industry to participate in this session. As the whole day, actually, in this room has seen a lot of discussion about the future, about the NRNs, about the challenges that they have, about how they should be prepared to actually influence the change and make the future happen. And an important component of that is the relationship with industry. And I mean, we have here different people from different industrial organizations. They all can contribute to some extent in partnering with the NRNs, hopefully via Terena, and really help NRNs together to move towards the future. So this session is somehow, I'd like to invite the participants to reflect on the title of this session: how can industry help NRNs in managing the change? So let me first say that so I will hand over the actual chairs of the session to my colleague John Dyer, business and technology strategist at Terena. And briefly, let me introduce our participants. Start with the same order as in the website. So first of all, Diego Lopez, now in charge of technology exploration activity within the GCTO unit of Telefonica. And he joined Telefonica in 2011 after having been a very prominent member of the Terena community when he used to work at Rediris, and he's been one of our key champions in really making sure that the community led the middleware developments. Now. Sitting on the other side of the table, Chris Longvik from Cisco, working in the Research and Advanced Development Department, Cisco System, working in research and energy management, sponsor research activities, and provide technology leadership in the internet industry and to Cisco customers in all sectors. Then we have Rodney, just next to Chris, Rodney Wilson from Siena. He directors of Interaction and Collaboration Program within university and government research organizations, and responsible for Siena's participation with research and education networks worldwide. Next to John Dyer, Ulrich Berger, currently at Corient, Business Development Manager in the Global Sales Unit. And then we have, I hardly see her, but sitting in the middle, Gronier Filaine from Google. And Gronier is responsible for Google engagement with the education sector in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And she's partnering with education on Google Apps and other services. So after this brief introduction of the speakers, I leave the floor to John, who will then invite the various panelists to give their views on how industry can help NRNs in managing the future. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Valentino, for that kind introduction. I'd like to tell you how we're going to run this. I will invite each of the panelists to go to the podium and either give their slides or give a few words of explanation of how they think their organization can help the NRNs, if at all. And then we'll open discussion from the floor after each presentation, and if there's time at the end, we can have a roundup of ideas. So with that, I'll ask the first participant, Diego Lopez, Formerly of Red Iris. Sorry. So Diego from Telefonica will tell us how he thinks they can help the NRENs.
Shall we see what's happening here? Okay, this there. And this, okay, perfect. Well, I will be, in despite of my normal behavior, I will be extremely brief because and when talking with Jon about the possibility of preparing some slides, I was thinking about doing this, you know, the bold way, standing up without any slides, but then I thought that it was the opportunity of using some nice images about cycling and bicycles and all the like, being like we are in the land of bicycles. So I prepare 3 slides. I promise. So it's first it's and essentially is about the title. It's about that I have the impression, having worked in the past in an NREN and being now in an operator that, well, to some extent there are many parallelism between what the kind of changes that we operators are facing and the kind of changes that NRENs are facing. And this is something that I decided to structure the whole thing precisely about these parallelisms and how we can help each other. Not necessarily the industry helping the NRENs, but the NRENs helping the industry as well. The pity is that Dave Lambert did this before, in the session before lunch, have somehow spoiled or advanced most of my reasoning, because it's very much connected. This is the idea that, well, we are living times of change, we are living times of uncertainty for any kind of network service providers, because things are changing around in terms of budgets or in general how you get the money and from which are the sources you are getting the money from and under which conditions, and you have to justify much more than ever how are you spending. And this presentation of the e-fiscal was rather enlightening in that sense. Constituencies, most NRENs I'm aware of are trying to broaden them and finding new user communities, usage patterns and user demands. This before lunch, Erwin mentioned, for example, the bring your own device struggle, massive mobility, etc., which are changing very much how you can provide service. Well, the interaction with both the industry and the institutions, because things are changing. The space that were occupied by the NRENs is becoming more and more, let's say, less firm under your feet, which is something that is happening to us as well. So you have to find new rules and new ways to stand up, a new ground to stand upon it. And we are experiencing something that is very important, which is a shortening, a extremely strong shortening of the cycle, of the cycles for development, the cycles that affect the product or service lifetime, life cycle, how we start from an idea up to an actual realization, and we are moving in a much faster world in which you have to focus or burst because you're surrounded by either very people that are providing change at a very fast pace. And well, you have something that I tend to think about this as like a version creep. Things you are forced to be updating, continuously updating and continuously producing new versions of everything. Just to send the message that you're on it and you're taking it seriously and you're taking your user seriously. It's about that you are expected to behave like many other software and service providers, just sending to the market or to your users new versions of anything. And well, for sure, you have omni-virtualization. Everything, almost everything is becoming to be virtualized. And that means that you have to be even faster in your reaction. And well, let me insist, network operators and NRENs have been mutually oblivious for a long time. And I love that word. All the words and then ends in ness. But if you have some os in the middle, makes obliviousness. Sounds so, philosophical or something like that. So it's something that, from the point of view of the operator, you look at an operator, well, an end-run is a customer. Someone you provide fibers, you provide certain basic or not basic communication services. And for sure, Dave mentioned this morning, some kind of competitors as well. You are competing, you are stealing us some users that could be, well, we could be making some money off. On the other hand, end-runs tend to be, well, an operator is a provider. It's something that provides me the fiber, provides me the whatever, and they just give me something, well, and shut up. And to some extent, as well, we are seen by the end-runs as some kind of competitors, because we are in the position of offering some of the services that the end-runs are trying to promote among their constituency, and in some cases, in what could be seen as better conditions by the potential customers. But I think that, the collaboration is not only possible, but desirable, and we should try to find the way in which this collaboration could happen, because many of the reasons have been given this morning, but essentially is because, as Dave was mentioning, end-runs are market creators and are not competing with us at all, and are an excellent playground for essentially innovation. And again, this is the key point here, is about innovation, about creating new markets, even for us, and is an excellent point for, an excellent playground for making innovation happen in a much more flexible and fast way that we can afford. And there is much to share in both directions, in the other direction as well, because innovation is not only happening inside the end-runs, innovation is happening in the commercial world. I just come from another session, just being an update on the evolution in the standards bodies. And we were talking about things that currently end-runs are a little bit not that much aware of, because it's happening in a more industrial environment, and we can contribute as well, providing this innovation, these innovative products to the end-run constituency. So the idea is precisely try to move forward, try to identify a few the points of common interest. That, well, there is I just put the 3 of them, but I can't think of many others, or even make those of the sub-items an item by themselves. Essentially, federations, that's being one of the great inventions of the academic community, how to find a way of open ways of collaboration without relinquishing your ultimate ability to deal with your own stuff, essentially. You can think about this, applying this in identity, in security management, in something that is very relevant for us operators, at least here in Europe, because it's about infrastructure sharing, all the virtualization continuum, going from SDN plus NFB, and for sure, the cloud, and whatever has to deal with data infrastructure. My colleague Pablo was presenting during the opening plenary how much big data is relevant for us. I was, before I joined Telefonica, I was involved in an expert group from the European Commission precisely on big data, big scientific data, and open data. So whatever it has to deal to how you better manage data and you better open data access is extremely important for both operators and end-runs. And in general, I think that the only thing that I miss, because this kind of collaboration is happening somehow. I'm here, I had the opportunity to talk with some of you, and I hope I will have the opportunity to talk with more of you after this. But to some extent, I think that in some moment, probably there would be some kind of a little bit of more of formalization. I'm not asking for a different body or an alliance or whatever, but probably taking advantage of, why not, the opportunity of collaborating with Terena, finding a way in which we have a common reflection point in which we can share experiences, make each other proposals, etc. And that's all from my side. I promise to be brief.
Thank you for keeping your promise, Diego. Are there any questions from the floor for Diego? Okay. I mean, I was quite encouraged by Diego's presentation, and there seems to be lots of opportunities. But at the same time, I was a little worried.
Why?
Because you reminded me that we're surrounded by agile players. And it's one thing I learned about the community over the last 25 years, is agility isn't necessarily one of its strengths. And I see a danger of us getting left behind.
If you let me reply, in general, I think that the point is that what is a great mistake is to try to imitate what you are not. I mean, you are surrounded by agile players. What you have to do is just to try to to take advantage of their agility, and well, to learn some lessons as well. This is, my experience is what we are trying to do as well. It's more, the core business is the core business, and you have to concentrate on that, and you have to innovate around. And what you have to do is that if you feel like a certain part of your ground is somehow taken by others, well, too bad. Look for another one.
I guess my worry is that the agility of the users may be high.
Yeah.
And they could run away from us to you.
To us. We are not that agile. I wish we were that agile. I mean, the point, I think that something that is an obsession, and that something that I guess the network operators have learned the hard way, is that from time to time, you have to be aware that your market is going to shift somehow. And you cannot, for example, in some moments, for example, having leased lines for telephone subscribers and basing your business on that was extremely profitable and extremely comfortable. And then you have to realize that you have to play, I don't know, mobile data. Well, and you have to forget about the other, and there are many operators that have split their business right now. And now their fixed line operators are playing Wi-Fi, for example, because you have to focus or to look for a new ground to stand as things evolve. And this is something that I can tell you we have learned the hard way for what my colleagues tell me.
Okay, thank you, Diego. We'll try and learn from your lessons the easy way, okay? I would like to invite the next speaker on the list, which is Chris Lonvik. And he's from Cisco Systems, well known in the community, both Cisco and Chris, I think, and somebody else I can see sitting down there as well. Okay, Chris.
Okay. Is this one on? All right, I'm figuring it is. Let's see. After seeing who all was going to be speaking in this room for the past couple of days, I am not going to predict the future or anything that goes on here, but I think everyone knows that the industry is changing. The NRENs have got to change with this. Cisco's got to change with this. We've really, we're seeing some pretty dramatic shifts in what's going on here. The infrastructure, the part that Cisco is used to providing, is moving up the stack. There we go. What we're seeing is the compute and network and storage functionalities are all sort of merging, blending together. Cisco is very interested in keeping up with this, and we know that the NRENs are very interested in providing these services to your own constituents. So we go about trying to find new ways to bring these things together, bring together the academic and NREN research communities with the Cisco community so that we can actually progress this thing forward. What we've got, we do have, throughout Cisco, we sponsor open innovation. We go out to the universities and ask them for proposals on what to research. We actually take to them some ideas that we want researched so that we can go and get the next some answers to some perplexing questions that perhaps we don't have the right talent to investigate ourselves. We move that around, and speaking of the talent, we actually do go and recruit from these top universities and bring in some smart people into Cisco. We do some closed proprietary innovation ourselves. This is making the products that actually we sell and make money on, so it's pretty important to us that we get that part right. And it completes the circle by we put some of that money back into the community. We propose these grand challenges, and we do this little thing called collaboration, and that's a nice way of saying, hey, academics, that's a nifty idea, but we're not going to make any money at it. So we go back and forth with these things. It completes a cycle here, going back to the previous talk there, that we actually can get some innovation and forward-looking ideas out of. So Cisco R&D globally, we've got 70,000 employees, over 70 countries, and over 300 offices. The diagram you see there is where we have a lot of research going on, quite a bit here in Europe, and we do like that. We value it because we do see the European NRENs being very innovative in some of the things that they're doing, pushing some of the envelopes forward in this whole thing here. So we really like getting some areas researched over here. What we do at the universities, we do try and get the universities to come back. I stole these slides, so I'm trying to learn them right now. Let's see, the motivation for our engagement, we do get some very good investigations going into the product lines that are important to us. We have the opportunity to bring in some interns and get them working on things. It's a long-term type of, we're starting to do some long-term internships, to bring in some of these people and not just have them work for a summer on something small or just so they can show something at the end of the 3-month period, but we're bringing them in for a year now so that we can actually get them to work on very innovative and important things. We get to recruit from this community, bring these people in. For the researchers, moving the envelope forward, looking at the things that are important to them and trying to bring those back to reality with us to produce products and services that the NRENs can use to continue the cycle here. One more. Okay, this is how it works. I'm not going to go into detail on this one, but we again go through the cycle of the getting the right talent, identifying the right products or services that we need to investigate, and then try and get those into the products that we try and sell. And again, the things that the NRENs are going to need feeds into that. It drives us to produce the better products, the better infrastructure, and everything else. And finally, the areas of interest to us are the same areas of interest that the speakers for the past couple days here have gone through as well. There's a bit more of an emphasis on networking than the other things, but honest to goodness, with the changes that are coming up, the rest of the infrastructure, how that is moving around interests us as well, and that's where we see the NRENs moving upwards as well. The computing, the data storage, everything like that, how you use it is actually driving the innovation in the community here. It's not just about the network anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Any questions from the floor from Chris? I can't see any. I think it's great that you're searching for talent and doing programs with the universities and research institutes. But how does that, okay, that leads to better products for Cisco, and these better products benefit for the NRENs, but is there some mechanism we could find to have NREN people and Cisco people interacting more strongly?
We try and get involved in FP7 projects, now Horizon 2020 projects, where we bring the NRENs and the universities in to address common problems that the EC can identify. So these interactions and what we do with specific NRENs that are happening right now, these are the things that they drive us. We are seeing this trend quite a bit from our regular enterprise and service provider customers, but the NRENs really are being met by these changes faster than those communities. They're not so much watching the bottom line or watching the how they're going to make money, like a service provider would watch how they're going to monetize a product or a feature or anything like that. The NRENs are actually coming out and saying, hey, we need this service to make our universities or our constituents be able to address the changing needs that are going on there. And there's where we're very interested and keen on watching those things, taking what's going on with that as a predictor for what is going to happen in the service provider and enterprise sides, and actually coming up with products and services that are going to meet the needs of everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Thanks. I would like to invite our next speaker, Rodney Wilson from Siena. Now, Rodney hasn't got any slides, but he's going to speak. Very wise words, I'm sure. So, Rodney from Siena.
Oh dear.
No, you can do it.
So the question is, how can industry help researchers manage change? And it's a bit of a loaded question. And you can parse it out and try and explore it from a number of different perspectives. If I really wasn't interested in engaging with my colleagues on the panel, I'd simply say our job in industry is to build the very best innovative high-performance products that are reliable and useful to the NREN community, and we'll give them to you at an unbelievable price. That's a cop-out. We strive to do that, but that's really not helping researchers move forward. If I wanted to engage in a long debate, I could talk about public-private partnerships. And this was raised by Steve Wolf in the plenary this morning. But the challenge there is that they rely on a very specific strategy, a good understanding of set outcomes and expected goals. And then you create the team around the focus on those results, and then you find a contractual formula to allow it to actually succeed that way. And that can be a very long and protracted process to arrive at public partnerships and not easily achieved. So, instead, as time is of the essence, we really look at how Siena has organized this. My role at Siena is external research, and my job wouldn't exist, my team wouldn't exist, if it weren't for the opportunity to collaborate with the research community. We define the research community in three fundamental ways. One is the NREN community, and we participate in conferences and gatherings such as this, have done for many years. We work with universities and institutions of higher learning in the university community, and we also work with governments and government agencies and the initiatives that they fund. So in this way, we could be organized, I guess, in a business development role. We could be part of Siena's market development or business development team. But in fact, we're part of the CTO organization, the Chief Technology Organization. And in this group, we're responsible for helping to discover future directions, strategic directions, discontinuous technologies, threats to our business or opportunities to accelerate our business. And at the same time, work with you and work with the NREN community to try and accelerate things. Now, we're not so, I have some of the world's best R&D engineers, product developers, feature developers. And they're doing a fantastic job bringing some of the world's leading products in photonics, photonic transmission switch and control mechanisms. But we're not so arrogant as to think that we have it all, that we have a corner on this capability. And so we rely on the very nature of collaboration to help extend our view of the future. Now we have three currencies, three different areas that we can use for investment. One is cash, and cash is good, but it's really hard to come by, and it's really easy to dispose of. So another form of investment we have, another currency, is in the form of equipment. And we make our equipment available for collaboration and experiment freely, and at considerable investment to the company. And perhaps our third and most valuable currency is access to our people. And Siena employs scientists that are working on next generation photonics, mathematics, and engineering. And collaboration with these experts gives the kind of traction or impedance that your users and that the NREN community needs. So we approach this in three ways. One, we fund research at a small number of very select universities and delve into different areas of future concern. We work with mathematics departments, material science departments, physics, of course, and naturally engineering. A second way we collaborate is through creation of test beds and deployment of emerging, maybe not ready for prime time technology. And this is where we have perhaps our most visible form of interaction with the NREN community, which we're told is extremely helpful and helps deal with the challenges. So we're here at TNC and have been for a good number of years with really breakthrough technology, world-first accomplishments, and we're extremely proud to have a small and contributory role to this. Other events that we contribute in are things like Supercomputer, the big American SC series of conference, and we provide technology both for the production as well as for experimental purposes. We test our technology, we test ourselves, and we test our partnerships. And the reason that this works for us is we view the NREN community as being somewhat forgiving, a somewhat more experimentally accepting community. If we tried some of the things that we do with you, with our service provider community, we could damage the company. Instead, we collaborate with you and we try things, and even when they don't work out quite as expected, there's great recognition for the attempt. And like scientists engaged in many different disciplines, we learn from these activities, and we come back the next time with new and exciting technologies. So one of the themes that's come up over the past 2 days is this whole notion of trust. And Siena trusts its engagement with NRENs. And we like to think that as scientists, as participants with the community, we are trusted as well. And that is something, trust is earned, and earning it can be challenging as well as rewarding. And the third and final way is that we participate in conferences, in forums, in a wide variety of different meetings, Terina obviously, but organizations, formulations such as Glyph, such as Internet 2, and countless others around the world. We invest our time, we invest our expertise, and perhaps most importantly, we're in place to contribute. So our skills and abilities, and this isn't completely unique. One of the other areas where we invest a lot of time and presence is in standards and standards evolution. We participate with other vendors, with other contributors to help evolve the standards that allow the network technology to move together and evolve in a more cohesive way. We work extensively with component creators and supplier engagements. For a lot of the innovation that we see simulated on computers have to be turned into components, and components have to be engineered into products, and that's not an easy process. And we also participate in obviously conferences that are germane to our business, photonic transmission, switching, and control mechanisms. So, sort of to the question at hand then, how can industry help researchers change? Well, we find that, first of all, show up. Show up at events at many levels. Be a participant in the research. And this is a very important point to us. We view ourselves, and certainly my group and what we undertake, as participants and members of this community. We come at it from an industry perspective, and that helps us substantiate or turn some of the ideas and innovations into products that we sell. But it also is a vehicle that we use to advance technology, exploration, through experimentation, and we leverage our knowledge to try and raise the floating level of all boats. And the old adage that rising tides float all boats, and holes in boats sink boats, is something that we feel very strongly in. So in closing, and I think most importantly, we are all engaged in learning, and we are trying and we strive to be a learning organization, and then we apply what we learn to our own acknowledgement and our own endeavors, but share liberally and trustingly with this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's an impressive list of ways that you engage, and I recognize, I was going to say most of them, I think I recognize all of them. And I mean, you pointed out the trust with the community in us testing out products and not getting horribly cross and walking away. I think there is, as mentioned in the last session in this room, a lot of goodwill in this community, and that's what we have to build on. So are there any questions from the floor? Any comments? Okay, thank you. In that case, I will invite our fourth speaker, Ulrich Berger, who was here last year representing NSN. This company has transmogrified itself, it's a good English word, into Corient. So Uli is going to give us a presentation from the Corient perspective. Uli.
Okay, thank you, John. First of all, please forgive me that I spend a few words about our new company before I come to the point. So Corient has its birthday on 6th of May this year, so really a new company, but we have old roots. We are in, the origin is from Siemens AG, 30 years, more than 30 years ago, and we have now intermediate time of 6 years together with Nokia Siemens Networks, and now we are an independent company. The colors which we chosen as a blue or marine one from an older history more. Our product quality and our solution quality was one of our strong values in the past, and of course Corient will stand for a good quality again. We extend our scope more to end-to-end, and we also add additional tools for our customers to support better the service layer. Where have I? Oh. Now I'm too. Okay. So coming from a company which has optical only as add-on, we are now a company who is a pure optical network vendor. And of course, we have to sharpen our profile for this. We will do this with a global team of 1,900 people. We have a lot of optical patents, and we have an experienced management team. We are a healthy company. We have a strong and clean balance sheet, and we can maintain our R&D investment, and we have also the chance to invest if there are possibilities come up. Oh, so wrong. So just a few words about our portfolio. You all know, I think you all know our portfolio. We have a DWDM system, HT7300. We have an OTN switch platform with a HT7100. We have an MSPP and a PTN platform, HT70XX. We have, of course, a management system for this, and we add additional tools to facilitate the planning, to the service provisioning, and also an automation of the workflow. These are all topics we are working on: CDC ROADMs, FlexiGrid, lambda selective receiver, bitrate adaptive transponder, and space division multiplex fibers. We have also a project currently running with a big customer. It's a fully automated end-to-end workflow project. So the main topic is to provide new services within seconds and to have a clear database for all the planning and all the operation and installation stuff. And this, we call it intelligent optical control. This tooling covers all the functionality on the bottom, and it will also cover in future SDN. Here is a slide shows our representatives in the world. So we are a new company, but we are worldwide present already. Here are, from our history, some first and new innovations. The latest was, I think, the first demonstration of a mode multiplexed coherent transmission over 110 kilometers with 96 times 3 times 100 G. And of course, we will continue with this. Here are a few references that you know we are not such new. We have already deployed several big networks. And now, short view about the NRANs. So the NRANs cannot win against a commercially available service without specific add-ons. I think that was already addressed in several other sessions. The NRANs are on the way to define or redefine or adjust their business objectives and their mission. I think that is something which is going on quite regularly in this community, because you cannot define a mandate and say, that's it for the future. I saw in the TNC 2013 one session, teaching and learning online with multimedia. I think that is quite a good approach to deliver new services. And I saw another title called Follow the Users. I did not went into this session because it was a parallel to the teaching and learning, but I think that's the right approach, follow the users. Then another point is, I think, let's say I'm always a little bit suspicious about my data, who is getting my data, what will be done with my data. So there could be one thing to have data, more personal data, not the big data, of course, to have it stored under European law, for example, to have this as a functionality, as a feature. Then transport as a service, network as a service, software as a service for specific communities is a possibility. Then NRAN should not spend too many efforts in networks. This is no point of differentiation. I think this was also addressed in the last session. Therefore, the networks are only a tool or utility to provide the services for your customers, for your for the science communities. The task of the industry should to provide you good products which are intelligent, designed in order not to have too many replacements. Then the large CSPs drive for higher capacity, improved flexibility, and better operability. So it's no need to drive from too much from your side. If you have, in addition, let's say, innovations, that is a different story. But if you follow the market, there is a lot of pressure from the CSP to get higher capacities, to get more flexibility, to get better operability. Then we have additional public funded projects which drive the evolution in the optical networks. I suppose you also participate in such projects. I know in the moment from 3 from EU funded and 1 from German government. And so topics which are addressed from the industry should be on a better cost base than you can ever do. So you need not to invent the wheel again. Let this be done by the industry, and concentrate your forces to deliver services to your customer. And of course, in case there is really a service which needs additional, let's say, functionality in an optical network, then we can talk about that is a midterm benefit to get this information early and to find a way to go in this direction. But I suppose the most interesting thing is to create new services and to just to make a proposal. Let's say if I see this one case, teaching and learning online with multimedia, it's not a too large service, let's say. But if it is running well, you could distribute it in the whole community. You should build some clusters with people who have ideas to create the solution and then to advertise it within the community and not to everybody does it on his own. And we in Coriant have now restructured our sales force a bit, so we have combined as responsibility for several entrants in order to increase the weight. Until now we had each entrant in a different customer team, and now we combined it in order to increase the weight and to have a better chance to work together, to interwork with the entrants. Thank you.
Okay, Uli. Are there any questions from the floor for Uli? I have to say, in some ways, you painted quite a black picture for NRENs. You know, you said we should not spend too much time on the networks, and we shouldn't bother to focus on optical networking stuff because you do that better, and I'm sure that's true. And maybe we should focus just on teaching and learning services, and that means MOOC, I suppose.
I think so. Let's say if these topics are already in the industry, then we can do better. But if you have something in addition, then of course this can be introduced in the industry, because the industry will, at the end, we need to earn our money. So there has to be a market behind. If you have really something very, very special which does not pay off at the end, it's difficult to realize. If you have, of course, then let's say a sales reason, let's say you have a very, very big volume and you want to please your customers, and you can do, then you might do it. But if you have see no market behind, then you wait until some market is here, or
What I heard this morning, well, I don't know that this morning, I don't know what day it is, but I did hear, while I've been here, that the NRENs, I heard this quite strongly, the NRENs are market makers. So if you trust us a bit to make your market, maybe it's worth the investment to up front, even when there's no obvious payback immediately.
Yes, of course, let's say we try to understand what are your needs, and of course, if we see that it is an advantage in the midterms that we can also have some benefit from it, then of course we will follow it. That's clear.
Okay, thank you very much, Uli. And we'll now move on to our last speaker. I've been practicing saying your name, pronouncing your name, to the extent that I can't remember what I'm supposed to say anymore. I said I wouldn't call you Grain.
There's all sorts of variations. The most common Irish pronunciation is Grania.
Grania, that
but
was
if
it.
you,
That was what I meant to say. So
There's
Grania,
multiple variations accepted.
so Grania, please welcome to Terena. I'm very happy to say that Google are a new associate member of Terena, and I'm very happy to welcome Grania to TNC, and I'm looking forward to hearing how you might help the NRENs.
Thank you. I'll definitely keep this short because I know coming at the end of 5 speakers is a little bit difficult. So I'll try and keep this. Upbeat. I'll start off with an introduction to my team, if this wants to move. While that's thinking about it, maybe I'll just I'll give you a quick. There we go. Okay. Great. So this is a quick introduction to my team's mission. So this is these are our lofty goals. When we talk about, I just want to refer to the first objective, which is to build the technological foundation. What I mean there are Google's goals in education center around a lot of the products that millions of people already use, like Google Search, Gmail, YouTube, things that are used in multiple thousands, millions of situations, but have turned out to be really, really, really useful in an educational setting. But we also have additional services, which I think actually might even be more relevant to NRENs. These are quite new services, so these are things like Google App Engine or cloud storage, BigQuery for analyzing, big data. All these kind of things are new services that Google provides to businesses and universities and schools and research networks that I think we can collaborate on. And what I've worked with a number of NRENs across Europe at this stage, and what I've found is that by allowing networks, organizations of universities and schools to use our networks, this actually empowers these educational communities. So our general aim is to allow universities to focus on their core business, so outsourcing email, for example, focus on their core business of education, but while also enabling their students to use the power of the web to learn. So those are our lofty ambitions. However, having said that, I do think that we share the same goals. So NRENs are in the business of providing a network. So I think we're both of the same opinion that the web is the best platform for teaching and learning. And that's that's a goal that we both share. I think that when we're talking about change, the NRENs that I've worked with, I've seen are very eager to embrace change. There's been a lot of different groups set up to discuss, well, how are we going to address the changes that are happening, particularly around everything that's happening in cloud services. So that, I think, is definitely something that is to the NREN's credit. So this, if you might not have seen it, I haven't worn Google Glass either, but this is a screenshot as if you're wearing Google Glass and you're standing on the Brooklyn Bridge and you've asked, I wonder how long the Brooklyn Bridge is. And the idea is you'll see the answer right in front of you. when Google is talking about new ideas and change, our aim is to think big. Google Glass is something that probably won't come into the mainstream for many, many years, but it falls under this category that we call 10x thinking. And 10x thinking is everything around making big bets, thinking about things that people never thought were possible, changing the world. What do people want? Not today or tomorrow, but what might be really useful for us in 5-10 years' time. And I think the scale that we need to reach in order to make these kind of products successful is the same kind of thing that NREN's actually cracked quite a long time ago. When I think about imagining how you actually would roll out a network of NRENs across all of Europe and the whole world, that's just staggering. So the scale, you've already done that. So thinking about scale is not something new to Google. This is something that you guys have already very, very successfully done. But what I want to think about is how we can maybe combine that thinking. So combine thinking well into the future with the skills of the NREN. So I know you can think 10x. I know you can think at scale. So how can we work together to actually bring those together? So one of the things I wanted to show you here was a quick snapshot of the Amazon rainforest. This is taken from Google Street View cameras. So they've taken their cameras to places that most people will never get to in their lives. So this afternoon you can have a wander around the Amazon rainforest. Perhaps later on you can pop into the Louvre. You can pop into the Rijksmuseum. Maybe have a wander around. Look at all the paintings up really up close. Those are things that wouldn't have been possible. And what I'm trying to say here is that these are barriers that Google is trying to remove. And at the same time, my objective when working with NRENs is to remove the barriers to the cloud. So to enable universities and schools to really easily use cloud services. So this is why this is why I really want to work with NRENs to make it more easy for schools and universities to adopt the cloud. Great. So this is a quick shot of a Google data center, nicely lit up. So while I'm saying universities, schools around the world, around Europe, countries like Malaysia are moving to Google for some of the basic services like email, document sharing, cloud storage. NRENs, I've seen, are also stepping up to the change, stepping up to the mark. They're also embracing the change. They're setting up task forces to address how can we also utilize the crowd. And just to give you a quick example, Google Apps is the product area part of Google that I work in, allowing universities to access email, calendaring, all for free. And what we actually, the project that I worked with on specifically with SurfNet in this example was a project obviously in the Netherlands where we've had many prestigious universities embracing the cloud. And the important point that I wanted to make here was that the project, and most particularly the community that grew up around this project, wouldn't have been possible without Surf and without working with Surf. And there's a number of collaborations like this that I'm working on with NRENs that I really hope that you'll hear about quite soon in the future. So just to wrap up, for this year, my main goals are thinking big. So this 10x thinking, where can we go? One of the big things that we have to remember is that universities have so much choice. And not only do universities have so much choice, students coming into universities have extremely high expectations of the services that they expect from the universities. So the year for me is about removing the barriers, removing the limitations placed on universities, on NRENs, towards moving to the cloud, and helping NRENs and universities exceed the student expectations that have been set out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I see any hands up? Because I was going to do a Tim Marshall and see some hands up, but fortunately, Klaas has saved you all by putting his hand up himself.
Klaas Wieriga. I work for Cisco, but actually I'm asking this question as chair of a Terrena task force. Now that you've become associate member of Terrena, I've given up on some of the other associate members already, so I'm going to ask you as a newbie, are you planning on becoming active also in Terrena activities, like the task forces? I think if I speak for the task force, I'm responsible for mobility and network middleware. We could really benefit from some of the work you guys are doing in the TF-EMC Square that deals with federation software. There's lots of stuff happening in Google that we could benefit from learning more about. So do you have any plans on participating in these activities?
So from my point of view, I can only answer for myself. I'm not an engineer, unfortunately, and I think a lot of these things require a lot of technical understanding. What I absolutely can do is, there's obviously a few thousand people working in Google, try and connect you up to the right kind of people. But that's definitely something that I think would make us more active and would show our dedication as new members as well.
Well, we don't need 1,000 people from Google to come to the task force meetings, but
They can be here on Monday.
although we'll put our numbers up a bit. But I'd really like to echo what Klaas is saying. We really like to see active associate members, and we do work in places like the cloud. We do have the trusted cloud drive. We do have a storage task force, just to mention just a few. And I would definitely like to see. I'm not just encouraging Google here, I'm encouraging everybody else sitting here and out there in internet land to get involved in the Terrena task forces. I can see another hand up from Valentino. So, just... yes, they...
No, let's say Valentino is a known suspect, so...
Okay.
And then Valentino, okay, you're second in this.
Okay, my name is Daniela, I'm from Brazil, from RNP. And what we face in Brazil is that we develop inside the NRAN lots of products and innovation. But we don't achieve the end of the innovation, that is transforming a product in a low-cost product to not to sell, but to attend, to serve all our institutions in Brazil, for example. And it could be a great opportunity if industry could approximate with these developments of all NRANs and do the end of the innovation process, putting inside equipments and doing practicing low cost, at least for NRANs and to universities. And I don't know if it already exists or if you have plans to do it, of interested you to do some kind of these ideas.
Would somebody from the panel like to address this issue?
Well, since I was to the first starting talk, in short, yes. I mean, it's something that in the general innovation cycle, having the opportunity to evaluate, because it's something that you had to evaluate, to evaluate some new proposal coming from the academic community, definitely will be interesting to have a look at it and have the opportunity of somehow leveraging of your previous work to see whether, first, there is the possibility of finding some kind of collaboration agreement between us and the NRAN to provide the service in a better condition for you or in a better condition for more users or whatever, all the other way around, even talking about taking that service and bringing it into the general market for whatever the reason, because there is a clear market opportunity or whatever. That definitely would be extremely interesting to us. And, well, when it comes about making them low cost, This is something, no, but that's, again, this is about everyone winning in the equation. I mean, if there is a way in which, for whatever the reason, the provider of the service, of the commercial provider of the service, sees the opportunity of having an additional benefit that is not directly coming from asking you to pay money, for sure. It's about making money out of the whole picture, not only from one of the corners, certainly.
Anybody else from the panel want to add some?
Sure. So when you look at innovation and how industry can participate, there's a bit of an origin, and then it continues. The origin is the opportunity to explore technologies before they're commercial, before they're competitive. There are lots of examples around the world at events where vendors that are competing for your revenue are able to sort of set those competitive requirements aside and collaborate and work together to build something fantastic, to do something new and different. And then as the technology kind of develops and gets turned into a real product, and there's lots of time for competitive market positioning later. So my advice to you is to look at ways that you can engage industry when it's still very low on the product adoption curve, when innovation is happening. Because it allows us to be very agile. So if we say, well, this is a wrong direction, then we learn something very quickly. If that decision happens after the product is a product and it's being deployed and is growing rapidly in the marketplace, then it's controlled much more by market forces rather than education forces, and is harder to steer in the directions that you're talking about.
I can just say from Google's side, I've had at least 3 or 4 NRENs who've contacted me saying, we use your APIs and we've integrated it with our services, and we've done all these things, thanks. You know, so I think from Google's point of view, there are already a lot of things out there that are self-service, open APIs that you can use to use already. A lot of the services that Google provides obviously are free, so I think that's an opportunity to start there. And that's something that I would encourage you as well, maybe just to have a look up and see what services you're looking to provide, and then to see if there's an equivalent open product that you can already use.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Yes, great. In that case, Valentino Cavalli.
Yeah, so, no, I was actually, the question about participation of industry in Terraina task forces. It's an interesting one, and I thought actually asking a sort of symmetric question. I mean, how would you see Terraina becoming more involved, or maybe engaging more with you in the work that is important for you? Clearly, we heard of interest of NRNs. There are clearly also customer relationship going on, but we would really, I think the benefit of having an organization like Terraina, to coordinate things European-wise, is actually to go beyond that. So I wonder, if there is any way that we could bring the work of our task forces, for instance, closer to you, instead of asking you to come closer to our task forces. I mean, that's the sort of thinking that I had in mind right now. So it's an open question. I don't know if you want to answer.
Cisco does, answering both questions together, we put code into open source, and we would invite organizations like NRENs to contribute to that. One case in point is the OpenStack, OpenStack code that We're putting on a lot of our unified computing servers and everything. Applications can be written to that, and a lot of, it can open a lot of doors, and people can use that to actually make solutions for themselves as well. So we would very much welcome people coming to us with these things, ideas for new products and things like that. Get in at the early stages of these things, develop them before the market does control them. I agree entirely with that. So, but yes, getting this community to work with us in the research of these things, very much welcome.
Anybody else from the top table?
You are many, we are few. And so the challenge then becomes one of how to engage and how to select invitations going either way, and that can be a challenge. And in my talk, I said, one of the key things to do is to show up and participate. For us to participate at the Congress level, at the TNC level, allows us a very good vehicle to have insight into some of the working groups, and as you know, we do participate. But it's competing for our time, and as I alluded to, that's the most precious currency that we have, and so we guard that quite carefully. And so we really need to find the win-win scenarios that allow us both to accelerate. And they're actually quite hard to find. It's not easily achieved. And you can invest a great deal of time without getting the kicker effect that allows you to do great things.
Okay, there was another question from the floor.
Brian Nisbet from HEANet. Now, obviously, I can only speak for our own NREN here, but this is more of a comment than a question. First of all, just looking at the title of the panel discussion, I'm not quite sure what the change is that we're talking about here, but this does seem to come at the end of a day where NRENs, it's almost just this kind of vibe through the day where the NRENs will be going that the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And we've been talking about the fear that we're surrounded by agile competitors and all the rest. And my experience of it is that the industry people that we're dealing with, certainly in Ireland, are often monolithic companies that change. Now, there are exceptions. There are clearly exceptions to that, but they change very slowly. And we will say, we want to do this new, cool, exciting thing with you. And they'll say, that's nice. Here's the product we have. And that's the vibe we keep on getting. Or we'll say, we'd like to do this feature, and they go, cool, do you want to test this code for us? And then tell us how it worked, and then we'll package it and sell it. And there's obviously, everyone needs to work together, and there has to be a bottom line, and there's no question that there isn't one. But, I just, the point is that we need to continue to collaborate. We're sitting there, certainly, again, in Ireland, our arms open going, please, we want to work with you, we want to work with projects, with all the various partners, and it can be very difficult on occasion to get past that. This is what we offer, this is who we are. And you say, we are many and you are few, but there are companies with thousands of employees in what is quite a small country, and I know they certainly have more than the 50 people we have in HEANet, and we're sitting there going, we're very few, you are many, many people, how can you not find the time and the energy to kind of get involved in these projects, which will ultimately, and as was said a couple of times today, a market will be made, and there will be money at the end of this in most cases. And so we would like to fail faster and more regularly with our industry peers. And I think it's wrong of us as an NREN community to think that we're the slow-moving ones or the ones who aren't collaborating.
Can I just comment on that one, because I did kind of feel some parallels there. We do have a lot of engineers, for example, in Google Dublin. Most of our engineering staff, however, for Google are based in Zurich. So in Dublin, we've got a lot of more business side people. But I do have to agree with you when you say, you're a little bit perplexed about NRENs being called slow, because actually any of the experiences I've had is that they're actually extremely innovative, willing to embrace change and looking for ways to engage with industry. For me, it's just about matching the right opportunity to the right time, rather than us not being willing to engage. So more than happy, from my point of view anyway, to have further discussions there.
A couple of comments on your comments. When you were asking about which change we were talking about, let me paraphrase something that is the change that happens, whatever the change is. I mean, it's, the second is about the many and the many on both sides, because we have, I have personally an experience with, in your case, with HEAnet some time ago when Mike Norris was still over there. One thing that is important is to have the right person to talk to in every organization. I mean, in a small entrance with 50 people, in a monster company with several hundred thousand people around. It's about knowing who to address, because things can be much easier. That's why I was, at the end of what I was making my talk, I was mentioning that using somehow terrain as a focal point. But I'm not asking, again, I'm not asking about a European-wide committee on collaboration on industry and entrance or whatever, but somehow having this, probably the task forces, probably, well, these conferences happen every year, and that means that it's not that, probably it's not as, the frequency is not that good in that sense. But finding a way of exchanging some views, common views, because this is important. It's not about you going to talk with your guys in O2 Ireland that probably not exactly the ones who are willing to take a certain risk or a certain action, would help. How? Well, one of the, apart from participating in the task forces, one of the things is that Terena apparently, well, apparently, no, it's not apparently because I was involved in the past on this, Terena has a good experience in doing some kind of, let's call it collaborative procurement of certain services. And they have been successful on this. Instead of talking about collaborative procurement, we could be talking about collaborative seeking for collaboration. I don't know how to, I let John to find the right words for this. This is a native speaker, so it would be much better than me naming it. But it is about collecting requirements from your side. Well, I'm somehow equaling the many-to-many or the one-to-many or the few-to-many relationships in that sense. And that could be trying to answer to Valentino's question, role of Terena in this area.
Been racking my brains. I think the word's collate.
Collate.
Do we have any more?
So, Hugh Cartwright from Imtech. So we are a partner and represent quite a number of the vendors represented on the panel. And we'd love to work with the NRENs more. I think the problem is, where do you start? Because there are 33 of you. And if we were simply to choose the largest, because it rationally represents a bigger best rate of return for any investment we put in, then the smaller NRENs are going to lose out because they won't get the chance to participate. So I think there's a role for someone or some committee or some organization to play in perhaps coordinating the contribution that industry can make to the NREN community.
Well, I think the organization you're looking for is called Terena. The bad news is there's not 33 NRENs, there's 40 members. But what we try to do is put the right people in touch with the right people. So let's talk after this session. More than willing to follow up on your suggestion, very, very much so. So I will come and find you in the gloom. All right. So thanks for that. We all had enough. Nobody will admit to having enough, so I'll have to do it. I would like... Janos.
No, it was someone that Janos was pointing to.
Oh, sorry, we can't see who you are in the dark.
You know, the lights here that don't help at that much.
Hello, sorry, John. It's Carl Meyer here from Géant.
Carl, right.
Just one very quick question. Basically, I kind of almost imagine there's 3 different types of ways that industry can work with the NRENs and the users of the NRENs. The first is the industry can see us as customers. The second, the way that we see us as guinea pigs to try out new stuff before they give it to the wider population. And the third is to probably see us as more of an outsourced R&D organization to help find new ways of using these technologies, new cool things that can maybe be exported to the rest of the world. How do the panel see this delineation? Do they believe in that kind of delineation? And if they do, how are you going to be able to relate in 3 different ways to us?
So I agree with your delineation. That's what we strive to do. At Ciena, we create different teams and have a matrix environment to it. So in engaging with NRENs as customers, we have sales teams and account teams, and they manage a strategic commercial relationship. And then the other aspect, guinea pigs, well, yes, we love to have field trials. There are things that we can do in the NREN community that are very difficult to simulate in the lab. So a willing partner and a willing collaboration allows us to harden our products, to use it in what can be an extremely challenging environment, and help validate future features that perhaps service provider customers might not exercise. So that's an engagement that we have for products that are almost ready for prime time. The third area that you talk about is really relating to more core research and experimentation. And to do that, we turn more and more to your users, to the universities and the places that are investing in specific areas of innovation research. And as I say, we only work with a handful of them, perhaps a dozen around the world, but in multiple disciplines and in many in different ways. For those, we establish a statement of work, a research agreement, and we take one of our subject matter experts, someone who is specifically skilled in those areas, and give them basically daily working relationships with those universities. So for us, what we strive to do is work at an innovation level, an engineering level, and a commercial level, and your delineation from that perspective is correct.
If I may add something, first is that you're right, but I would put some qualifiers in what you mentioned. First is about with customers. You are some kind of strange and in many cases pioneering customers. That helps a lot. And that should help NRENs in achieving better conditions in general. I mean, whether experimenting with new services or the possibility of having some access to first-hand innovations and opening our eyes in new ways of exploiting the services themselves. Second, when it comes to guinea pigs, well, the point is that you're extremely smart guinea pigs and not as expendable as guinea pigs, or you are more guinea pigs than white mice. That is the part that is more expendable in labs. And that means that somehow you are, well, it is a direct connection with the third part, which is about the source of research and development. And when it comes there is something that is important to distinguish. There is a fourth aspect that probably is connected to the first one, because when talking about the NRENs, it's something that has to be taken into account, is that there is the NRENs and the users of the NRENs. And in the first case, you're talking about the NRENs themselves. the teams in the entrance, people that are now deploying services or doing research activities within the GEANT project, for example. And the other one is when you're talking with the researchers that are connected by the entrance, are using the services of the entrance. And this is something that is important because the need, there is a strong need that I am aware from the side of the researchers and probably from the side of the industry to be able to use the entrance as a research tool or research facility in which researchers can make research over the network itself, which is something that I have seen recently, certain very interesting movements in that direction. For example, inside the GEM projects about this, it was this concept of making an open flow facility to evaluate open flow itself, that it was extremely interesting. And I'm glad to see that because this fourth aspect was somehow neglected in the past.
Anybody else up here? No? Anybody else down there? Please wave wildly because I can't see too well in the dark. Okay. In that case, just like to sum up. I mean, what I see is a great willingness. I see a great trust and understanding between the community and our commercial associates. And let's build on that. As partners, whatever the delineation within partners means, let's call it partners. Let's also involve more users. You know, we don't see so many users here, particularly the big users in e-infrastructure, those sort of projects. And let's do all that, and we'll come back next year to the industry session and say, hey, look what we achieved, okay?
Thousands of collaborations.
Thousands of collaborations. So with that, I would like to close the session almost perfectly on time by saying thank you to each and every one of you panelists, and thanks to everybody down there. So thank you to the panelists. There's all sorts of announcements I'm supposed to make about posters outside and So, okay, I did it. Okay, there's the student posters you should vote upon. There's the open space whiteboard thing you should write ideas on. And I think that's it. Oh, the demos. The demos happen 3 times a day. Don't miss them. Anything else? Anybody think of anything? Okay, thanks. Enjoy your evening. See you back here, 9 o'clock. Don't be late in the morning. Okay, bye, thanks.